Hello there. First of all, Happy New Year to all. I am joined by a very old friend. He's not very old. let me rephrase that. I'm very old, but he's my friend. But I have known Montel Hardy since he was actually very young, I guess. But now he's rounded into his prime, his peak as an evaluator. And because he's a professional, he's closing the door back there. That's always good work. What we're going to do is sort of walk through 31 really teams because we all know the first pick, right? Let's not even waste any time on it. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence. They're not going to trade the pick. They're not going to do anything silly. Well, I shouldn't say never, but my assumption is they're not going to do anything silly. They're going to trade the pick. There's going to be Trevor Lawrence. Let's move on to the second team with the team with the second pick, and that's the Jets now, the team that so long had the first pick. There are people thinking the Jets may trade down, or the Jets may take Penny Sewell, or the Jets, well, whatever. What do you think the Jets do, and what players could you see going with the second overall pick in round one?
Well, I think if you're the Jets, it's got to be Justin Fields. And I think everything happens for a reason. When you look at it, it's hard to say because obviously there's going to be a new coaching staff. So I don't know about fit, but Justin brings everything to the table. I think he could benefit from being in a more grip it and rip it type system where he's processing quicker and the ball's coming out quicker, because that was the biggest knock I had on him on tape is just, okay, is he sensing pressure and is he processing information fast enough to get rid of it? But everything else is awesome. He's got the arm strength to go vertical. If you want to do some choreo type stuff, he can get he's accurate to the hashes. He can go lateral. I mean, and then obviously there's the mobility there. So, yeah, I really think he's got to be the pick at two, especially if you're talking quarterback. I mean, I like Zach Wilson too, but I like Zach Wilson in a position where he can over-deliver, and I think two is not a position where he over-delivers. So, Yeah.
Let him fall to the 49ers where he'll thrive.
The
things that concerned me about Justin Fields were the few times he faced teams that could actually disguise coverage reasonably well, right? Indiana and Northwestern, he struggled in those two games. And he showed, one, that he is able to decipher things if given time, and he did it against a team with a fair amount of defensive talent, though not a vintage Clemson defense, but still a solid defense. So I'm satisfied we've done that. Let's move on to the next pick. Via Houston, because Houston's not going to regret any of the things they've ever done. Via Houston, the Miami Dolphins now have the third selection. Oh, this is going to be interesting for Miami because they've got a solid team and they have a lot of draft capital. This could be bad for other teams in the NFC East. What do you think is going to happen there?
It's really tough to say because a lot of people were trying to start let's get another quarterback type train too. And, I'm really hoping
I'm sorry. I'm just going to throw a veto. No. They're not going after another quarterback. Just flatly no. Let's talk about players who actually could go there.
Sure, yeah, I'm right there with you. It's just I'm reading it. It's like that's what people are saying, so it's kind of like got me freaked out. Man, I feel like they have a lot of needs. I mean, I would try to go O-line. I think there's some opportunities there. I think the big thing too is receiver. Like if you're going to try to make it work, maybe another playmaking receiver could help them out, or tight end. They're a tough team to play. So there's a lot of different places they can go. If it was up to me, I'd go offensive line, and I'd try to give them. I'll probably try to give them a tackle or a guy like. And people are going to shoot me for saying this, but I think Sewell is a guy. Penny Sewell is a guy who can play guard or tackle at the next level, and he may be a better guard.
What's the shoot someone for? If you get a guy who ends up being Russell Okung, right? Or you know what I mean? Like or if he ends up being Brandon Scherf, you're choosing between a guy that turns into Brandon Scherf or a guy that turns into Russell Okung. I'm okay with either.
Exactly.
And they want to run the football better. So I mean, that's if you listen to Brian Flores, right? What does he talk about when he talks about his offense? He talks about the running game. He wants them to have a more explosive, more consistent running game. Well, boom. Yeah. How do you do that? Devastating powerhouse downhill run blockers. Penny Sewell, whether a tackle or a guard, gives you that. So, boom. I think we've done that one enough. Moving on down the line. Good job so far. Now, here's a team that is a team clearly at a crossroads. The Atlanta Falcons. most people are assuming they're going to, if not blow it up entirely, begin the process of deconstruction, however you want to put it, to rebuild in a different direction. Could they be a team that goes after a quarterback? What do you see there?
Yeah, there's a lot of different outcomes there, and I think part of it is going to be, when they decide, what coaching staff they're going to bring in. That'll be kind of the thing. I want to kick this one to you. I want to see what you want to do, because I didn't really anticipate them picking this high with the same needs that they have. So it's kind of like, I don't know. Like, yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Tell me where they should go.
I could see them going wide receiver, right? I could see that if they try to keep the band together for one more year. Now, all depends on what they decide to do. If they look at the core of their talent and say, I think we can do one more run with this group, that means I think they'd go after either a wide receiver or a pass rusher, if they decide to sort of try to keep the nucleus of the team together for at least one more run. And so that means amongst pass rushers, this guy like Azure we just saw, guys like Kwity Paye are in the mix, guys like Rousseau, though I think it's a little early for Greg Rousseau. But there's people, he'll get pushed up the board farther than he should. I mean, I can virtually guarantee it. He's a guy who should go at the very tail end of the first, probably, but he'll probably go, in the top. Well, maybe not top 10, but probably go in top 15. Those are all people I could see there. If they do go quarterback, then obviously Zach Wilson's in play. Trask probably not in play that early, but yeah, I mean they have a lot of, and of course they could go offensive line. They could go Leatherwood. I mean that's not out of the realm of possibility. If you've watched the Falcons' offensive line, they could use, no matter what happens, whether they're trying to put the, keep the band together for one more year or blowing it up. Offensive tackles help everybody in every situation if they're good. No one's ever gotten worse from getting good offensive tackles. Like you never later think back, oh man, if only we hadn't gone offensive tackle and he turned out to be good. No one ever regrets getting good offensive tackles ever. Okay, so let's move on now to the Bengals, a team who obviously are set at quarterback, though he may miss the first couple of games. They'll just have to sort of patch it together for a while. They could use a little bit of everything on that team, obviously. Other than being set at quarterback.
Well, I don't want to say temporarily, but it is. I mean, when you have the type of injury Joe Burrow had, it is not a given, right, that he's going to come back.
It's not 100% of a given, no. We generally believe nowadays with the state of
modern medicine. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We generally believe guys are going to come back and be 100 or close to 100%. And we're all hoping that for him because we all love watching him play. But this team could use offensive line, it could use defensive line, it could use linebackers, it could use receivers, it could use tight ends, it could use corners and safeties. There's literally not a position they couldn't use.
No.
Man, I mean, it's all over. Literally everything. Could they take Jamar Chase? Sure. Could they take Sewell if Sewell falls to them? Yes. Could they go after Leatherwood? Why not? Could they?
Yeah, I would definitely give them Leatherwood in that situation, assuming Sewell doesn't.
If Leatherwood's there, they should. What you'll say goes run up, teleport. In fact, to the to put in that pick
100%. Yeah,
because now you're set for 8 to 10 years at a keystone position. So yeah, we'll just say Leatherwood for all intents and purposes, and keep it moving. Now here's another inflection point, right? The Eagles fans are never happy no matter what you give them, so we don't have to worry about making them happy. It doesn't matter. You could get a Hall of Famer. If it's not the guy they thought they wanted, they'll still be unhappy. They're another team that could use pass rush. They have good pass rushers who are on the backside of their careers. Their offensive line showed you that even your offensive line you think is a good offensive line, if you don't have quality depth, we'll find out that you don't have quality depth. Their secondary has been a mess. I mean, I don't know how far back you want to go, but it's been a mess. I'll just leave that. They can use every kind of secondary player. It might be too early, maybe, to go after any of the corners or safeties in this draft.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I think if you're the Eagles, you probably just want to go out and get an offensive weapon. I think they're in a situation where I don't know where they're going with Jalen Hurts, if they're going to give him a season and see what he's got. I don't know. I mean, Carson Wentz still under contract, so as of today, it's safe to assume they'll probably still have him unless they can deal him.
Unless it is one of the great blockbuster deals in football history, which, I mean, it can happen. It's hard. They have to have somebody who's desperate and willing to take on a, boat anchor of a contract. Maybe the Colts. People keep saying the Colts. The Colts decide, we're moving on from Rivers. Rivers is 39 or whatever, and Frank Reich obviously loves. There's a love fest between the two of them, but he's still got to talk the people who sign checks into signing a big check. I'm going to, at this moment, go with Devontae Smith. And, he's been, people have compared him to everybody from Stephon Diggs to a taller Antonio Brown, Isaac Bruce, whatever. Compare him to whoever you want to. He is, he is a slender but surprisingly strong player who has, despite not being super tall, plays taller because he can leap. He has long arms, big hands, fearless. He'll go wherever the ball goes.
100%.
But what I like best about him is after the catch. We live, for the most part, in an after the catch league for big plays. Every once in a while, you get a team that just, throws you, deep balls. Obviously you've got Kansas City and even Tampa Bay this year. But for the most part, big plays are plays that go 17 or so yards down the field and guy breaks a tackle and right? That's where most of your 70, 80-yard pass plays are, as opposed to a ball traveling 55 yards in the air. It's mostly 15, 25 yards in the air that a guy makes somebody miss. And Devontae Smith especially if he gets to be somebody's number two. Like if he gets to be, like the situation.
That high, I don't know how it happens if he's getting picked that high, but
right. Obviously, if he goes to the Eagles, he will not be the number two. He'll be the number one and the number two. Like they've got issues. I love Travis Fulgham, but in a good situation, he's your number 4 receiver, not your number 1. So let's call that done and keep it moving. That brings us to another fan base that's been sort of wandering in the desert for a very long time in terms of team success. And they're one of those franchises that I always feel a little bit sorry for in the Detroit Lions. The Lions have, it seems like every time something good happens, 2 bad things happen to them. Like it's almost like you can almost schedule it. Like, oh, hey, you guys got a really great franchise quarterback. Oh, and his best weapon is on the backside of his career and retires young. Oh, and on top of that, we do some horrible hiring in terms of head coaches. Oh, and as on top of that, we let some of our promising young players move on to other teams. But once again, another team that some people are mocking a quarterback to. Now, once again, I don't think that's impossible. I don't see them letting Stafford walk. Once again, nothing's impossible, but it just seems like, why? Why would you do that? Like, what would be the thing that make you say, oh, yeah, we got to let Stafford go? He's not super high paid as quarterbacks go nowadays. I don't know, whatever. But who could you see going there?
To me, I would definitely give him a receiver, and I'd give him Jalen Waddle since you left him on the board. I think they have a number of expiring contracts at the receiver position. NIU guy Kenny Galladay is going to be hopefully there for a little bit longer, and then they need another receiver. They need more playmaking weapons, and I think that's going to free up what they're trying to do at the running back position. I think Swift has it. Adrian Peterson has been hawking some carries from him, in his later days, but they're going to be good there, and their O-line, it could be better too. But I think this draft is deep enough to where they can go in the second round, get some interior help, and start with a great receiver in Waddle. So, I think that's the move for them.
I will co-sign that. We'll move on to the Giants. The Giants are a team that is capable of looking really good or really bad, sometimes in the same game. Like there seems to be. Well, first of all, they're set at quarterback, so that helps them. At least they have that position dealt with. Their defensive line has been coming on as the season has gone along, and they have one of the best free agent signings in James Bradbury at corner. However, if you look pretty much any place else, there's needs every place else. Their offensive line needs help. They could use playmakers on offense. They could use playmakers on defense other than interior defensive line types. And, they could use everything else. What do you see happening there for the Giants?
Well, for the Giants, I think they're another team that I mean, you're right. I think especially towards the back end of the season, they did kind of show some things. There's been some slight offensive improvement there, and they're still missing Saquon Barkley. I mean, there isn't that much to be a negative compared to, I think, what we all thought would be there for them to be negative about. When I think about their needs, I gotta say that they gotta really try to do some things up front. I do think they need some offensive line help. I think they need some defensive line help. So it's really hard to say. I mean, I'm just trying to think of who I would give them right now based on the board. I'll probably give them an edge rusher here. I think they'll be decent value. They're picking higher than I anticipated, but let me see. I'm gonna go ahead and give them some value here. Well, not the most value, but they've got to go edge rusher here. So I'm going to give them Azeez Ojulari from Georgia. They really need to help the pass rush really bad. Like they need someone who's gonna get after the quarterback. It's been an issue for them all season.
Yes.
I think putting a superior athlete there that can do some different things, who can run the hoop, deep pass rush arsenal, and he's still learning. I mean, he's only really scratched the surface of what he can do as a player, and he's already very impressive. If measurables check out, I think that'd be someone I could co-sign on taking that high. Obviously, I'd rather have him this week over deliver, but I think when you think about this edge class and who needs it and where they're picking, it's just not really going to happen. Unless some people show some things in the combine I didn't think I'd see. I just think, someone's going to end up going a little higher. There's always that first wild pick. I think it'd be Ojulari because at least this wild pick has, great tape, so.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, he has the things you look for.
Yep.
I would love to see him be more polished. I'd love to see him be more productive because I always want everything, especially if I'm taking you in the top 10. I like all the boxes to be checked. But, hey, the NBA approach to the draft is becoming more popular, I guess, in recent days. So he has that kind of, once again, in the NBA approach, he has the things you're looking for that you just need to build on those things until it becomes really what you wanted. And now,
absolutely.
And now we get to the 10th pick. So the Carolina Panthers are, once again, another team that's recently undergone a quote-unquote culture shift. They had been built around Cam, and they'd been built around Coach Rivera. And, of course, both those linchpins of the program are gone. Matt Rule is in place, and they've got Teddy Two Gloves. They are a team. They're a team that really, really, really obviously wants to run the football again, right? There are teams that still like to do that. They've had to move away a little bit just because of McCaffrey, but he can catch the ball as well. So they're set, at least in their offensive approach, but they could use, once again, offensive playmakers. They could use offensive line. They could use a defensive line. They could use corners. They could use safeties. They could use linebackers. They're another team that, sort of like we talked about the Bengals, I mean, they have one or two players. It's easier to talk about what they don't need. They need one, except for running back and quarterback, they could use pretty much everything else. What do you see as their most pressing need, and what would you address?
Yeah, I mean, they've got some needs at offensive line. I think they could use a corner. They could use a receiver. I think they're going to be okay to get a receiver later. I think they could be definitely better served getting a cornerback later, but I don't think you can pass up offensive line at this point. So I'm going to give them a tackle. I believe Sewell and Leatherwood are off the board. So,
they are. Sewell and Leatherwood flew off the board.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them Christian Darrisaw, the tackle from Virginia Tech. Yeah. I think he's come on the scene a little bit later, but he's really great in pass protection. He's a great athlete. Just some of the things he can do, quick to the second level. A lot of people, I think, really need to check him out because there's a lot of names being floated up there, but some of them aren't as good as this guy's been to this point in the season. So, I think that's how you help fix the Panthers is you give them another year of Teddy Bridgewater, whether they like it or not. I think you're invested in. It can get worse as a Chicago Bears fan. Yes. It can get worse as Teddy Bridgewater quarterback. So I think maybe you do. And this should be the move for a lot of teams is you build around the guy you have if he can play at least average, which I think Teddy can do. And, in a year, maybe when they, round out the rest of that team, you can use draft capital to go up and draft the dude you need to get. Like that's the way it should be. I'm giving them a tackle. So
okay. Well done. We are now through the top 10.
Yeah.
Well done. Good work. So another team that doesn't know if it's set at quarterback, and that's always worse, right? Something that was taught to me when I was trained as a sales manager is We can live with yes. We can live with no. We die with maybe. And that's where Denver is, right? Denver is in that dying with maybe situation where they don't know what they have exactly at quarterback. And that's always the worst place to be. You're better off knowing you don't have it or knowing you do have it. So some people are trying to send Trey Lance there, right? I don't know if that's a great spot for him.
Denver's coming where quarterbacks, it's like the kiss of death for quarterbacks now. It's becoming where they go to die, So and Trey Young is just such a young thing. I mean, he might
Trey Lance is young, he's raw, he's talented, but I mean, it's not like he's going to sit and learn in that way. It's not a great situation. It's not a great
He's
situation.
directly into the fire there. And,
so what would you do with Denver's selection?
Well, the way I see it, Elway's already kind of endorsed Locke. So whatever his situation is, he's okay with it for at least another season. I do think from a cap standpoint, they may want to look at an edge rusher because I'm not quite sure. I'm not super up to date on the cap situation, but there's a situation where they may end up having to cut a guy like Von Miller. I mean, he's owed a very significant cap number. He's kind of at that point in his career where you question, if that's what you want to do. I hope they keep him. I'd like to see him stay there and they ride it out to the end. But I also think that at the very least, whatever you get from Miller, you've got Chubb on the other end. Get another pass rusher in there. Get another edge guy in there. And maybe have a rotation if everything's good. Maybe you have 2 solid starters. But I think no matter what they're doing at quarterback, if they can be better on defense, they can get more than what they have now in terms of win total. So I took Omojari off the board, kind of kicking myself for doing that so soon. But I think I'm going to have to give them, for what he can do, I'm going to go ahead and give them Patrick Jones. From Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of my guys.
I'm higher. I'm higher on him. Oh, you are? I was about to say I'm higher on him the most. There is a little bit of stiffness there in terms of bending the hoop, but he's gonna do everything else at an extremely high level. He has a deep pass rush arsenal. He's twitchy. He's explosive, and he's going to get
stronger. He's gonna put on 12 to 15 pounds by the time he's done with camp.
Yeah, especially just in a different strength and conditioning program, and also at Pitt. I don't know who their D-line coach is, but that whole unit is coached extremely well. His launch is good. His stance is good. To get off is great. His pass rush arsenal's deep. And they have a bunch of guys like that. In a year or two, you'll hear about a guy named DeAndre Jules. So when I recruited a couple years ago at Wake, extremely good defensive lineman. He's versatile. He could have been a 3 to 6 technique, anywhere in college football. So, but yeah, going back to Jones, though, not to take anything away from him, I think he's a solid player. I think in terms of floor, I'm as comfortable with his floor as an edge rusher with anyone in this draft. So I think he'd be a good fit there.
Gotcha. Okay, then we'll keep rocking and rolling. That brings us now to the Chargers, another team that has the advantage of being set at quarterback. They had a lot of injuries on defense, but they have some good pieces on defense. A lot of them didn't play this year. They have, at least one great pass receiver. They have a couple of good running backs, and then they could use pretty much everything else. They could use offensive line. They could use defensive line. They could use – Hunter Henry is okay, but he wouldn't stop me from picking up Kyle Pitts. I wouldn't be like, we're set. We're not that set. But what would you do there?
Yeah, I think you always sit and you want people in a position where they can over-deliver. But I think this is about – is as low as Pitts will probably go in actuality. So I'm just going to give them Kyle Pitts. I don't know if
it's a great spot for Kyle Pitts. Actually.
Yeah. The only thing is I wanted him in a deeper situation where he could definitely over deliver. But I think if you really hit on your quarterback and they do have a decent receiving core, they don't need him to kind of drive them from 0 wins to 10. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have to be the savior for that team. He's just go there and be great as he's been, and they're going to be a playoff team.
He's not in a situation where he can be lined up in a traditional, he can be in that dual tight end tech. He can line up at wide receiver. They can put him in the slot. They can put him in the backfield. They can probably do some wildcat QB. Who knows? I don't know. But he's in an offense. First of all, I mean, that's quiet as kept. That's a really fun and good offense. Like, I understand everybody wants to fire what's his name into the sun.
Anthony Lynn, yeah.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, Anthony Lynn has been bad at certain things, especially things that show up on game day. But he's good at everything else, which I know is sort of funny to say. He's great at developing young players. He gives them confidence. He knows how to put the right amount of pressure on young guys, but not too much so that they, right? He's good at developing his own coaching staff even. What he needs is it's almost like he needs to be subbed out for during the game itself, which is, I know, it's silly. I mean, you can't do that. But if he had somebody who could walk in and be like, hey, great job, go into the bullpen and get your game day coach, because he's good at all the other stuff. But it's not going to be enough to save him probably. So who knows what will happen there. But if you can't figure out how to use Kyle Pitts, you shouldn't be an NFL coach. So that's let's keep it moving. But
I was gonna say, Pitts can do anything, so there's a use for him. I mean, at first, I wanted to get deeper in the tape because a lot of guys that are athletic and great pass catchers, you think, okay, they don't want to put their face in there, they don't want to block, they're not physical. No, he likes to block. He's physical.
He's not a killer, right? He's not out there, tossing guys out of the club, but he's not one of those wall off guys either. He's running his feet. He's getting gets his hands in good position.
Yeah, he does a good job.
Right. And he's another guy that's going to put on 15 pounds like that.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to look like that. He's not going to look like that in November of next year. He's going to be towards 55 pounds.
Yeah, he's going to be huge. And I think, they're going to be good hands for him. Like I said, even if he's not as dynamic in NFL as I feel like he totally will be, as a blocker and just his ability to just do the fundamentals well, he's going to play a long time at a very good level, Yep. So, yeah.
So this is something that you didn't think you'd say not that long ago, but we now come to the Cowboys, and they could use help on the offensive line. Time moves faster in the NFL. Comes at you fast in the NFL. They have needs on defense. They have needs lots of places, obviously. But what do you think is the biggest need for the Cowboys?
I think they could use a corner, honestly. But first off, I think in all actuality, if the Jones family knows what they're doing, they might, especially if certain guys are off the board, they might want to just trade down. If I had to put money, I don't know what the prop bets are for trade down positioning, but this would probably be a prime trade down spot for them, But yeah, I mean, if they stay here and they take a pick, it's got to be a corner, in my opinion. This guy isn't my number one corner, but this guy says Dallas Cowboy to me, so I'm gonna give them Patrick Surtain Jr. From Alabama. His best work is vertical. It's he's decent in press, man. That's kind of I think where he's gonna live at a little bit. He's physical enough, he can tackle enough. He'll dive at ankles. So he has guys. He's a way to get guys on the ground.
Right there you go.
Right. So he's not turning it down at all. There's, he's grabby at times. There's gonna have to be some refining of the technique there. You want to see what he can do laterally and what that looks like. But it just screams Dallas Cowboy to me. That just seems like the guy they want. They like having dudes that are big and long, and I mean that's probably gonna be it.
No, and it feels like an actual Cowboy pick. If they do pick there, I would be not at all shocked if he's the pick. Now this brings us to a team that has fewer obvious needs, but still some places where they must get stronger if they want to continue to contend in Minnesota. They're one of those teams that tends to pick in the middle of the draft seemingly every year anyway. They're never at the top, almost never, well, rarely at the top. And only occasionally in the latter part. They might go 10-6, 11-5 occasionally, but they go right back to being 7-9 or 8-8. So that shapes your draft to some extent when you're consistently towards the middle. But what do you think you can get done if you're the Vikings to kick you out of that middle and get you back in a top tier team?
The Vikings got to get their house in order quickly. They signed Kirk Cousins a few years ago. He was like a unicorn free agent QB. There's no reason why they shouldn't have won a title by now. I mean, seriously, with the defense they are building with Danielle Hunter and Eric Kendricks, and they have one of the best safeties in the game. Yeah, good. There's no reason why they shouldn't have been there. So they've got to move fast. I think one thing they got to do is get the interior of the offensive line a little bit better. And I think offensively they'll be set. I would take the rest of the picks they have and just get deeper on defense. I'm going to give them an offensive lineman here just because the value to me seems awesome. So I'm going to give them Creed Humphrey from Oklahoma.
There you go.
I'm going to be creative here. Actually, should I give him Creed? Actually, no, I'm not going to give him Creed. I'm going to give him Wyatt Davis because this guy's an actual guard.
Okay.
Yeah, Creed Humphrey's a center. I feel like he can play guard, but you don't need to project when you're taking the first interior lineman off the board. So I'm gonna give them our guy from Ohio State, and hopefully he can come in right away. I think he's strong at the point of attack. He's physical. Laterally, some of the stuff isn't so great, but I think him, along with the center that they have, they got him from North Carolina last year. So those two guys on the interior and what they're building, I think could be a great offensive line.
Got it. And now that brings us to the 49ers. A team that, well, obviously was in the Super Bowl not that long ago. You don't have to go that back far, right? And so they don't have as many pressing needs as some other teams that are picking, but they do have. Sorry. Flipped it. Sorry, it's New England now. New England's number 14, and then San Francisco.
Gosh.
Sorry, so New England. New England, wow. We talked about teams at a crossroads. This might be the ultimate team at a crossroads. They're set almost nowhere, actually. I mean, it's easier to name the guys that are likely to still be there next year than the guys who won't.
Mm-hmm.
They potentially could have 6 or 7 starting spots available when camp opens for somebody to win.
Yeah, and it's positions you don't really expect them to be. Right. I think on the interior of the offensive line, there's going to be some openings. I think defensive line, which is very unpatriot-like, but they're going to have some openings. Honestly, they could probably use another receiver too.
You think? Yeah. And they've drafted some tight ends, but every single one of them has been somewhere between below average to terrible. So when's the last time you said that the tight ends at New England were a non-factor in the offense?
I can't think of the last time.
Ben Coates was pretty good. You got to go ways back.
Yeah. They had to put someone there that was a good enough athlete. Even remember that stretch prior to the Gronkowski area, they took a linebacker, right? They took a starting linebacker in a red zone, and they threw him a couple balls. A
couple touchdowns, yeah.
It wasn't great. I can't remember the name, but
they've done it with a bunch of guys. But what do they do here? What are they going to do here now?
It's going to be pretty unpatriot-like, and it's going to feel very awkward, but they're going to have to take a quarterback. And based on their system and what they like to do, I've seen them do a lot of different things. I think they're going to take Trey Lance here. I think they're gonna because of Belichick. They're very into the details. They're very into their background checks. Their scouting reports are like Bible sized. You know what I'm saying? Like they know every detail. And I think with some of these coming out about Zach Wilson, from a wealthy family, is he going to work hard? Is he going to, want to do certain things? And then you look at,
he's getting Rosen. He's getting.
Yeah, I think he does have the most to lose in the offseason in terms of draft positioning, just on what people are saying. And as people get deep into the tape, I love this tape. He's going to be. He's a great arm. He's accurate. He's got great improvisation skills. He does well when things break down. He's a great athlete. He has the tools to be successful at the NFL level. But if you look deeper into his history at BYU, like I said, there's injuries, there's inconsistent play. The production this year vastly outweighs his previous 2 years. Just even in the games he's played, there's just more yards, more touchdowns, less interceptions. More everything. Yeah. So either everything's clicked and he's totally got it, or maybe this is a variance here. So I think as teams figure that out, possibly look at background, a team like the Patriots will say, we're not in on this guy. We're going to take 19-year-old Trey Lance, right? He may be 20 on draft day. He's got a great arm. Yeah, he does. A lot of the stuff they do, because you even see it with Cam. They scale.
Packaged with this is signing a veteran or something, because he's not going to be ready to go day one.
I don't believe he's going to be ready to go day one, but I think I've seen what they've done with, say, Jacoby Brissett, where they've stripped down some things and used his mobility. they may come up with a way to try to make him playable early. I think with the Cam situation being probably done, they may bring in another guy. But what they do,
what's Case Keenum doing now? Like, is Case Keenum not available?
Yeah, he might be for the right price.
Your classic bridge quarterback.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, I think someone's going to take him and try to play him right away. And I think he'd be best waiting a year or two, at least most of 1 year, like a lot of rookies. And it can still be the case for Lance. But with his athletic tools, the key to him is just going to be, if you get him on the whiteboard, does he know what's going on? Can he figure out football? If he can learn to do things that are more complex than what he's done at North Dakota State, he can play his first season. He can play as a rookie. Okay. And it might not be so bad. And I think we look at personnel-wise, what they do with two tight ends, they waggle them out. I mean, he can do some of those things as a Patriot. And you think about some of the mobile run plays they did with Cam Newton, he can come in and be just as productive. You think about some of the things they did. If you just look at that stretch of games where Jacoby Brissett was a starter, what they did, Trey Lance can come in and do that right away. Now, I think that would be greater for the last 4 games of the 2021 season, and then maybe get him able to better master whatever the install is for the next year. But I think there's he's gonna have to play for somebody. I think that's what it might come out to.
Okay. And now that brings us to the 49ers, a team that, when the season began, no one would have thought they could possibly even be considering a quarterback. And now it's no longer unthinkable. But what do you think is going to happen with San Francisco?
This is another tough one in terms of needs. I don't really. I'm gonna kick this one to you. Tell me what you think the Niners. I kind of.
Oh, sure, yeah. I got it. So here's the things that I think could happen there. I could see them being a home for a corner like Caleb Farley. I could see them possibly being a home for a pass rusher. I mean, you never have too many. They have a lot of them, but you can never have too many. But what I think is going to happen, my personal, what I think is going to happen, I think it's going to be the tackle from Texas, Sam Cosmi. That's, if you ask me right now today, because I think he fits what they like in their offensive tackles.
Oh, yes. Road grader, man. He is a road grader.
He fits what they like in their offensive tackles. Yeah. And sort of to quote me, you never regret getting a good offensive tackle. There's certain positions where it's like, I don't care if you're set at the position. If you can find someone who's better, you should probably get that somebody, right? I mean, there's never, when someone said, oh man, we're too good at offensive tackle. I've never heard that. I've been around football for a very long time. And at never point, I've never heard someone say, man, we're just too good at offensive tackle. I wish we didn't have so many good tackles. Never.
No. I'm with you. And that's a great idea. Going with corner there, especially. Yeah, I think that's a great move for them.
I mean,
or tackle. Yeah.
Well, those are the two things I think they need. I think that, I mean, we've all loved Richard Sherman. I would buy the Richard Sherman book when he finally writes his book. I'll listen to his podcast when he becomes a podcaster, and God willing, somebody will sign him to be like one of those guys as desk, like an analyst, desk person, or even maybe a guy in the booth. I will watch games that he calls because he's going to give you great stuff. He's incredibly bright. He's a terrific thinker. He's cool. I think he has a kind of a cool presence and whatever. I love him as a person, and I loved him as a player, but his days as a player are clearly close to the end. So if Cosme's not available, I would maybe Rashawn Slater, but if you can't find the tackle you need, grab a guy like Caleb Farley. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And absolutely. That brings us, we're almost to the, well, we're at the halfway point. That brings us to the Las Vegas Raiders. And I still see people try to send a quarterback there. And I've never understood why people hate Derek Carr so much. I'm not sure I get it. There's bad quarterbacks out there, but he's not one of them. He may not be your cup of tea. He might be the guy you like, but I could, without thinking hard, name 15 worse starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Mm-hmm. This team has bigger needs than.
No, I'm with you.
And what makes you think the guy is going to be better than Carr if they're drafting at this point in the draft?
Yeah, and I agree on that. I guess the word might be that just he wants out, or maybe that there's an issue there. So I guess if there is, then I kind of get it. But otherwise,
so
it doesn't.
If you run and grab Mac Jones, don't come crying to me when he can't do the things that Derek Carr was doing. So I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And I think one thing you got to consider too is just that he's played through a lot of not so great teams, and he's been productive. He's also been a class act because there's a lot to complain about. At least he's
played through a lot of other things. He's played through a bunch of nagging injuries. They've gotten rid of some of his best supporting talent around him in the past, and he's just gone out there and done what he can do, and he's produced at a high level. Like I value production maybe more than some people do. Maybe some people are just into how someone does it as opposed to what someone's getting done. I like production. There's two soul-crushing losses that the team had this year, both of which happened while he was watching, and the defense gave up those losses, people. Like, what's Carr supposed to do about that? Whatever. But getting back to the actual team needs or even places that might not even be desperate needs, because the team's fairly solid, like most teams picking in the middle of the draft, but they still have some things that could be improved. What would you do with that selection?
I just feel like some of these picks are gonna take on what I feel like the identity of the team is and like what the GM might do. And so the Raiders have the great misfortune of now enduring my perception of what Mike Mayock would do in the situation. Okay. Yeah. So
I get it.
I gotta say, just based on the type of guys he likes, type of tape he likes, and he's always been a real floor guy, not real ceiling guy, but floor guy.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go for an edge rusher here.
Yeah.
And if you have to choose based on what's left, he'll probably go with Kwity Paye from Michigan.
I agree.
Because
that's a very Mayock pick.
Yeah. I just think he likes the body type. He likes the effort. For a guy, that built the way he is, he runs the hoop decently well. There's a couple reps where he's just straight behind the tackle's back into the backfield. So ankle flexibility is there, hip flexibility is there. And in terms of counter moves, what he does with his hands, like it's among the best in his class, probably the best in his class. Just a matter of, is the speed going to be there? Is he's got some boxes to check for sure. But if this guy shows up in the combine, I think Mayock would absolutely love to have this guy. And then there's a black hole kind of there.
Right. If he has even a solid combine, like he doesn't have to blow it up. Because Mayock doesn't care that much about elite measurables. You just have to not embarrass yourself, basically, in terms of your testing. And if he does that, like if he doesn't go, if he runs 5.1, there's a problem. But if he goes out and at least has a solid day at the office, he'll be fine.
Yeah, if he's 4.8 something, even probably 4. Well, it's hard to get away 4.9 these days. But if he's somewhere,
right? 4.82, no problem.
Yeah.
Right. I'm with you. And that brings us to the Arizona Cardinals. Once again, a team that's at least set at quarterback. And, obviously they're about to, at some point, Larry Fitzgerald has to retire. So at some point they'll need to add another receiver. But they have a receiver in his prime and then a young receiver on the ascension. So they have two very good wide receivers. The tight end position is still kind of their offensive line is, not terrible, but I could see adding to that. Their defensive line could definitely use a little something. Now, obviously, they had Chandler Jones, miss the entire season, and that, that doesn't help. But I could still see adding to it. Like if he comes back and now you've got the other guy on the other side, that's something. And of course, obviously, Patrick Peterson. We talked about with my love for Richard Sherman. I love Patrick Peterson too, but Patrick Peterson is at the point in his career where he's no longer an elite corner, and in fact, he may not be an above-average corner. So you may need either to have the conversation with him about moving on, or, hey, ever thought about playing a little safety? I don't know. Because he's a. Well, we'll see. But what would you do? What would you address for the Cardinals?
I think for the Cardinals, it's a tough one, but I think I'm going to go with just based on their needs. They do kind of need some help on the edge, but part of it is because you know who they're missing. They need some help on the interior offensive line, and I think they also need an extra DB as well. So, given the value here, especially I just think about Kyler Murray. You got to look at what the Cardinals have at stake here over the next year or so. Like, if they don't win on Sunday, right, they're probably out of the playoffs. This whole experiment with their head coach,
Kingsbury, yes, Coach Handsome, yes, exactly,
yeah, very popular guy. But you got to think, especially if they miss the playoffs this year. Hey, we're year 3 now, what's it look like? Playoffs, I know this is a tough division, but eventually they're going to be under some pressure. And I think Kyler Murray's he's struggled a little bit since maybe over the last month of the season, since week 10 maybe. So the way I see it is they've got to be more invested in offense and get help on offensive line. So I'm going to give them Rashawn Slater and say that they work it out. He'll have, and what, that's my mistake earlier because I probably should have had him as my first, guy off the board before the Ohio State guard Davis. I should have gave them Slater, not Davis. So now actually I kind of cheated for Cardinals fans a little bit. They get some.
They're fine with it. They'll be thrilled. Now you're more popular than ever in Arizona. And once again, he fits what they like to do. They want. It sounds funny saying this, but when the team was at its best is when their running game was at its best, and which sounds funny to say because everyone talks about Cliff Kingsbury, in addition to looking like the guy who looks like in the Airplane magazine, when you get to the part where they're showing all the gifts, whatever you could buy yourself from the Airplane magazine, the guy who's modeling the compression shorts or is using that little massage gun on himself looks like Cliff Kingsbury. But in addition to that, they actually want to be a better running team. They want to have a more consistent running game. And while Rashawn Slater is a bit of a project, and I mean this in the positive bit of a project, like a guy who just needs refinement, not a guy who stinks in pass protection. He is a very good run blocker.
He's just so athletic, Bill.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but everybody, their offense is built on creating mismatches, right? Yeah. Even with their blockers, they want guys who can get out there, and if they're blocking a safety, they're not struggling to block a safety, right? Rashawn Slater's not going to struggle to block that safety. He's going to find that safety and get on him, as opposed to some guys who are just kind of hoping the safety trips over them. He's going to block him. He's going to bury him into the turf. Yeah, right, exactly. Take him off his feet. Right, throw him out of the club. No white T-shirts. That brings us to pick number 18. And the Colts. Now, once again, the Colts are another team that has a quarterback who is in the last year or two of his career, so a possible landing spot for a quarterback. But they have, to me, other needs. I don't know. We'll see what happens. They have other needs. They're a good team, but a good team that still has some holes. They have one of the better offensive lines in football, which is always a good place to start. They have some playmakers on defense, but they have some depth issues at almost every position, actually. They have a lot. Their starters are really, really good, but don't make them play anybody who's not a starter because all of a sudden, all their shame is revealed. So, what do you think? What do you see as being a good fit there?
I'm going to kick this one back to you. Okay. I want to see what you want to do here, and then, I guess we'll talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, hopefully. Okay, this is another interesting spot. Could they use a wide receiver? Sure, but there's really good wide receiver depth later in the draft. I like their corners, and I think they like their corners. So that means that it gets interesting, right? Could they go after a luxury pick? Possibly. Now, a guy like Rondell Moore, could he land there? Maybe? ? But I'm going to go after the sort of obvious to me. I think they're going to build on their strength. I think they're going to go after a kid like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and let him do a little bit of everything in their defense. And he's body type like the guys. They look at the guys. They don't have a bunch of I'm trying to put this nicely, but there's not a bunch of roly-polies on their defense. You know what I mean? Look at their defense. It's, you know what I mean? Like they may have the lowest body fat percentage as a whole of any defensive unit. Like, think of the guy who's got a bad body. I can't think of one. Every guy on their defense is like, like these are guys who need to have their suits taken in. They like long arms, broad shoulders, thin waist, long legs, and that seems to describe everyone at every position in their defense. And this describes him too. What position will he play? He'll play defense. You know what I mean? Like, I think they're going to have to sort of figure it out, but I think they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think they figure it out too. That is a good spot for them to go linebacker there. I feel like Arusu Koromora, he's had some really big wow plays, but then there's been some space plays where it's like, there's a little tightness there. So, and because a lot of people call him a rover, I'm like, rovers are really like, okay, so like if you have a safety that does that, right?
He can't be a real safety. He can't not full time. He can't be a real safety full time because he will get exposed.
Yeah. Now I think if you play him inside, if you want him as your buck, if you want
he
him
can cover
Mike,
I think in certain situations. He can cover running backs in certain situations. He can be he can basically play like a little miniature drop D end at times. He can even play some Mike linebacker in certain situations. And if you want to do, and they love playing cover 2, Tampa 2, if you want him to do the thing where he like tears goes 17 yards, drops 17 yards, yards, and then picks
cover
off
2 buck right there. Yeah,
I mean, who's going to do that better than him in this draft?
Yeah.
Maybe Zaven Collins. I mean, but it's those two. Okay, so I'm going to call that one done, and we're going to keep it chugging on down the tracks, and that brings us to. It's going to sound weird, the Washington football team, but not the name part, but this them being at this point in the draft. Now, obviously, this is going to change dramatically if they lose because then the artificial pushing up by them being a playoff team goes away. But it's just so weird for them to be picking here. If they do end up picking here, if they become a playoff team, then it means, once again, good news, bad news, right? Good news is you're a playoff team. I guess the bad news is you're number 19 and your team's not really that good. They're a team that has an inspirational story at quarterback and moved on from a pick who was number 15 overall at quarterback. So they could obviously still possibly use a quarterback. We all root for Alex Smith, but is he your long-term answer at quarterback?
No, I think what he's done is inspiring. I think coming back from his injury and continue to play was very brave. I think he's had himself an awesome career. And if you want to make him the bridge guy, like I can totally respect that. But I think you're kind of at a point where you really don't want to rely on him having much more to give an NFL team. Anything he can give you past like this very second is just extra. It's awesome. He's definitely on borrowed time in the NFL right now. I think you have to go with a quarterback. And so even if they make the playoffs, I think the pick is still quarterback. And I think they'd be very fortunate to have Zach Wilson still available. And if he is, I think they take him.
Oh, yeah, if he is. You knock down your grandmother to get if he's still available.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think they take him, and I mean they obviously have to do their homework too. But assuming character checks out, right? Because I guess that's what Dwayne Haskins didn't have. But assuming character checks out.
Obviously, if the owner gets involved again, if the owner likes it, but I don't think it'll happen anymore. But I could see that happening there, and that brings us to our 20th selection, and it is your number 20 on the big board in terms of picking, but number 1 in your hearts, the Chicago Bears. The Bears are a conundrum wrapped inside a riddle, dunked in enigma sauce. But tell me, Mr. Montel Hardy, what would you do with that selection?
Well, now I'm kind of mad because like you kind of gave away Sam Cosmi a little early for me. Then I had to go trying to help out the Panthers, giving them Darisaw and stuff. This is really not the ideal scenario, but this is.
But these things happen. That's why you do.
Yeah, these things happen, and this is kind of where the Chicago Bears wanted to be. So I get it. People were going to get fired. Everything was going to go up in flames. Everything still can go up in flames, but people tried their best to win the last few games, and to their credit, unlike previous Bears regimes, they competed, right? And they won, so they did their job. to me, at this point, what they would want at quarterback isn't there. So you have to look at other needs. I'm going to look along the offensive line. I think the best move from them at this point, they could do a couple different things here. I want to give them a tackle really bad, but I also want to give them probably a great player. So it's you're in between, because tackle, I think you still have some value there. Yeah, I think I can do this. We're gonna go. And this is obviously assuming things check out at the combine, but based on his twitch, what he can do in pass pro, I like Jalen Mayfield. I think he's long, he's strong. His tape is very good. Seems like a high upside guy.
Yep.
Body type is solid, and I really think for this pick in this area to come away with a guy like that, that's good for the Bears.
The only other thing is I could see them going defense as well, but yeah, I like that pick.
Just curious, what would you give them defense at? Because
if I were to go defense,
I'm just curious. Yeah,
if I were to go defense, people I could see going there would include Greg Rousseau is a possibility in my mind.
Ooh, yeah, that would be awesome for them.
I could see a possibility of them going with one of the corners. Maybe Sean Wade, maybe.
That's a possibility. I think people would very much be angry, but it's a possibility. Yes, it's not even the worst thing they can do.
But that's what the Bears tend to do in the draft, is they tend to make people angry. They have a long-standing tradition of doing things in the draft that just make you want to throw yourself in front of traffic. But hopefully they'll break that trend. Hey, if they listen to you, things can be going around turning in the better direction. And now we're getting to the teams that are essentially good teams. Well, let me take that back. It's Jacksonville, but it's coming from the Rams. So let me change that up a little bit. Jacksonville is another team that has some young pieces to build around, but also needs almost everything. They once had a great defense. Not that long ago, speaking of life coming at you fast in the NFL, they once had a great defense. Pretty much all of it's gone. They had not a great offense, but they had an offense that was one time built around play action off of a solid running game, and they still run the ball fairly well. That's the one thing they've managed to sort of retain in Jacksonville. They've had an interesting mishmash of quarterbacks. It looks like they've decided that they aren't thrilled with their quarterback situation. So, you tell me, what do you think they do?
The Jaguars, I think we gave them Trevor Lawrence, right, to start. That was easy.
So now they're set. They should be.
Yeah. Like now they should be set there at quarterback. I think they're going to need some offensive line help here, and this is kind of not the best scenario for them either in terms of getting depth. I think they could maybe use a corner too, but I think this draft should really be about – it depends on the staff, but it should really be about getting Trevor Lawrence and supporting him right away based on the value that's there.
Yep.
I think, it's hard, Bill, because I kind of like Chark and I kind of like Shenault, but I'm kind of tempted to give them I'm kind of tempted to give them another receiver.
Nothing wrong with that. There's because people have gotten in their heads that you shouldn't make your strengths stronger. But look at what great teams when they draft, they often will make their strengths stronger. There's nothing wrong with that. You can win a lot of different ways. Sometimes you can win by overwhelming another team with your strengths as opposed to just shoring up weaknesses. But yeah, go ahead. Who would you like for them there?
I'm gonna give them Jamar Chase. I think getting him this late.
Sadly, Mr. Chase, I think, is off the board.
Oh, you gave him away? Oh man. Okay, you did. Okay. Where did he go? Did he go? I guess he must have went early.
He did. I think I sent him to. I should have written this down.
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Let's see here. I'm gonna kick this to you then. If I can give them Chase, tell me who they get, because I want to give them a tackle, but we're getting to that area.
Did I send Jamar Chase to Philadelphia?
You know what? I think you did.
I think that's where I sent it. I should make note of these things. Remind me to hire an assistant the next time I do one of these things. Okay, so
no doubt.
So let me think. Okay, I could see them. I can see a lot of things here. A lot of the players they would like to have have already left the board, obviously, but that happens. That's what happens. Did we ever send Micah Parsons anywhere?
We did not.
I didn't think we did. That's a possibility to me. I could see. I could see a few guys over there. I could see your boy Boogie Basham. Isn't beyond the realm of possibility to me.
Yeah.
Now we'll talk more about Boogie, off.
Of course. Yeah.
Some of the places.
Yeah, no doubt.
Once again, corner isn't guys like.
I think corner would be good.
Any of the top corners. A guy that I like, he won't go this early, but a guy that I like is that kid. I think Allie Green, the big super long corner, is a guy that could go there. He's not going to go this early, but he's a really good football player. There's a lot of really good corners that people sort of overlook because I don't know they're not the right program or whatever it is. But I could see that landing there too. But the player I think ends up there, which is, I guess, is more matters more than what I like, is probably what I think they actually would do. I think they may be the landing spot for linebacker Nick Bolton. I could see Nick Bolton finding a home there.
You got him in the first, huh? You got a guy Nick Bolton in the first?
Maybe. I could see him landing there. I could see him. I could see – I'm trying to think who else could land there. I could see – I could also see them –
yeah.
And once again, trading back is another really smart thing if they can do it. Because
I was about to say that might be a move for them too.
Actually, this would be a great spot for a trade back because they can use everything, and more picks is probably one of the biggest things they could use. I could see them. What's the name of the kid I'm thinking of? The Notre Dame kid.
Give me a position.
Liam
Eichenberg. Yeah.
I could see him. He's a guy that might make it to the second, but I could see going in the second half of the first.
Yeah, just due to need. Yeah, he'll be right there. And honestly, I would with Mayfield, but knowing the Bears, if he's there and it's close, they take Eichenberg. Notre Dame connection. He grew up,
and that's how it is that you once again send people screaming into the streets, rending their clothes and gnashing their teeth.
That'd probably be what it'd be. Not to say, I think he'd be a good player, but that's another dude where if you get him in the second round, it's like, hey, look at what I got in the second round,
Exactly.
And then you get him in, in the first round in the late teens and right at 20, and you're a team that really, really, really needs a tackle. You're like, well, I have this, and hopefully it's efficient. Which sounds better? Hey, honey, I got this, or I think this is probably gonna work. That's kind of where you're at.
Right, and that brings us to, for the first time in a long time, the Cleveland Browns are picking in the last 10 picks of the first round for the first time in, 20 years, a long time. I know that much. So the board, instead of being just stacked, normally when they pick, where you can pick whatever you want, now I wouldn't say the pickings are slim, but there's not as many great players available as there normally were. Looking at the Browns, and the Browns are pretty set. There's some people who still aren't sold on Baker Mayfield, but they're not drafting another quarterback, so be quiet. They obviously are incredibly deep at running back. Their wide receiver group is pretty solid. Obviously, they have, a superstar when healthy. They have a really solid couple of possession type receivers. They have two young athletic tight ends. They really have a really good offensive group. There's not a huge weakness anywhere really on the offense. Now that Baker Mayfield's been fairly consistent, their defense has a young superstar, has a really good couple of good young players in the back half of their defense. Their linebackers don't blow your mind. Like I'm not. There's no be still my heart types there, but what would you do with that pick 22?
There's a couple things. Good for the Browns. I feel like I've mocked more players to them since I've been doing this than anyone because they've had so many multiple picks and so many.
Yes.
good for them that they're finally picking here. It's working out. I think they got to go linebacker here, and I think there's a little bit of value there. I think they'd be. It's tough because the Browns could use a linebacker, but it's like I kind of want to give them another edge rusher too. I'm gonna let those other edge rushers work their way into the first. I'm not even gonna do that right now. I'm gonna give them the easy value. I think if Xavier Collins is there, I feel like they could use a linebacker. Boom. I think that's good for them. Good for them.
Home run. Oh.
Yeah.
Devastatingly good pick. Devastatingly good. Love it. Man, possible rookie of the year candidate right there. Oh, man, you put him on that defense. Oof. Man. Man. That's a really good defense now. Speaking of good defenses, that brings us to Miami. Speaking of good defenses. Pick 23, Miami on the board. Once again, another team with no gaping holes, but what would you do there?
Miami. I think this is actually where it lines up pretty well. They got to try to help Tua out. I think they're going to give him another year or so to evaluate and see where he goes. Well, actually, before I say this, what did we give them earlier, right? Didn't they pick earlier? Or no?
Yeah, we sent them.
I think I gave them. Did I give them a receiver?
Yes, you sent them.
Yeah. Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. As long as I didn't give them an offensive lineman, this works out perfect. So I'm going to give them Creed Humphrey here.
Oh, you almost sent him to somebody earlier, right? And then you pulled it back?
Yeah, I pulled it back and gave him Wyatt Davis because he's a guard.
Okay, yeah. I remember now. I knew I'd heard his name before. Got it. So that gets us through 20. Yeah, takes us to 23 picks. Other players I could possibly see in Miami. If they wanted to build on a strength, they could possibly go after a guy like J.C. Horn from South Carolina, who is another super long corner. I could see them if they wanted to keep building on offense. They might go after a guy like Elijah Vera Tucker. Maybe he's sort of a bit of a project, but I could see him not sliding. What's the word? Rising, maybe up to that level. It's not impossible, but yes. That brings us now to pick number 24, the Ravens. The Ravens are another one of those teams that has a type, right? You could say, oh, that guy would struggle someplace else, but he's going to be fine with the Ravens. Oh, DJ Fluker, he would struggle someplace else, but he'll be fine with the Ravens. Oh, Orlando Brown II, he would struggle if he went to such and such, but he'll be fine with the Ravens. The Ravens have a type. Are you huge? That's one thing we like, right? Right? They love downhill on offense and defense, right? We want to be downhill on offense. We want to be downhill on defense. We like, our sort of template is big and physically imposing. Like they have a type. Is there someone that you think that's available at this point on the board that sort of screams to you future Raven?
Not for their needs. Not for their needs, no. Because, okay, yes, but we're going to go – well, there is one, but I would like that better as a second-round move. What I'd say is, give them that Trey Jones guy from Tennessee, huge, big guard, physical, mentally has a lot to learn.
That's the guy that looks like a Raven, yeah.
Yeah, I would say second-ish round, maybe not first for him. And then I'd say, really, though, it is about offense, I think, and they've got to find a way to support Lamar Jackson. So I really think it's got to be some kind of receiver here. The guys that I'm going to give them aren't really like the biggest, but they fit. A guy like Rashard Bateman might be a good move here. Yes. I think he'd be a good, he's got great hands. He's smooth with his routes. He plays in a kind of a run-centric offense kind of, so he gets it as a receiver. He's going to block on the perimeter. He can play well, and they do. They got to help out Lamar Jackson. The Des Bryant experiment didn't work out, and his production slowed down a little bit, so they gotta support him. So
yeah, no, I'm with you. And they once again, he may not be a huge physically imposing person, but he's a physically strong receiver though. And he understands that you've got to block sometimes. He understands a lot of things about playing receiver that aren't always the glamorous stuff. So yeah, I can feel that. Speaking of run centric, we now come to the Tennessee Titans, and they're a team that has one obvious glaring need, and that's pass rush. They're above the mark, above the middle line in everything, offensive and defensive, that you can measure except pressure. They do not get pressure on quarterbacks, and when they do, they're blitzing. So that's not a good. It makes your defense unsustainable, basically, if you can't get pressure without bringing extra people. So what do you want to do to try to fix that, or is there something else you want to address for the for the Titans?
For the Titans, okay, this is a tough one. Well, you kind of brought up a good point in terms of like what they need, because they could do a lot of different things. I don't know. I'm just trying to think. I don't know. I mean, you want to give them an edge rusher. That's another team where if you gave them another receiver, I think it could work out. They could also, I think, use some help on the interior, that like defensive line. Just trying to think. For what's there, right? We haven't given Russo to anyone yet, right?
No, we've said he could go there too. We've done that with Ray.
Okay. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, I guess to make the exercise fun,
since we're doing scenarios more than just a straight up mock, you can use a player more than once, because we're saying so and so or so and so, right? So even if you had sent him to someplace else, feel free to use him again if you think this is a good landing spot for him. And then if there's another alternate player, you could see there as well.
Yeah. So I think, just like you said, I think he'd be an option there. I think if you're going receiver, I don't know. I love what A.J. Brown's doing, but I think they bring in another guy like an Amano St. Brown from USC. I think could help them out a lot. That's another guy that's going to get open, can catch the ball, versatile. And then, or like a Rondell Moore. I think just one type of
Moore in that offense,
receiver. Yeah. I'm probably going to give them
back at times too.
Yeah. I like that too, because I think it'd be a good change of pace. You got Derrick Henry there. There's so many things you can do with kind of like, split backs. You can have both those guys on the field at the same time. You can run, you can end around. And then you also have Brown, A.J. Brown, who's a good vertical threat as well. So I think if you can have a guy like Rondell help you stretch the field, I think that's a good move. I think Amara might be the more conservative move. Combine's going to tell a lot, because I know how people feel about small football players and small receivers. So we'll see. We'll see. But he's no doubt in my mind a ex-receiver.
He's physically small, but he is a 555-pound squatter.
Yeah, and like I said, and anytime that's what you are, that's usually because your strength and conditioning staff is like, okay, we'll just stop there. You know what I'm saying? You're pretty strong. It seems like you're getting this weight up pretty, it challenges you enough to where we can stop at that weight. Because they don't, especially, depending on what program and how they maintain their guys, they don't want to keep pushing you into these extremely high weights. Because if something goes slightly wrong, you could get hurt. So,
right.
They cut them off.
You've got that many pounds on your back. There's no such thing as slightly wrong. It's now very wrong. What something's even. That's what
I'm saying. If you sneeze while you're holding that much weight, it could go very badly. You know what I'm saying? So I'm right there with you. I think
I love Rondell Moore, and wherever he goes, I think he's going to succeed. I mean, obviously it'll be situation is super important. He could go from being a guy who's just sort of a fun piece on some offenses to a star in other offenses. So it depends on how he's used.
Yeah, I mean, if the guy was just 3 inches tall, he'd probably go top 10. I mean, if I'm being honest. I haven't seen, I got to look at the production metrics, but I'm sure it works out. I mean, these guys getting double-digit catches a game in an offense that doesn't throw it a ton with much success. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's productive. He's going to be fast. I remember seeing his opening numbers. He's going to blow you away with his 40. If he did not get faster, it's going to be in the low 4.
He's going to have ridiculous numbers in the vertical, ridiculous numbers in all the things that change of direction and straight line speed. And then he might be putting up numbers in the bench that will be up there with defensive tackles and offensive guards.
Yeah, he's going to be able to, and that's what's going to kill him.
28 or 29 reps on the bench.
He might do it. I mean, I think if people see him get up more than 9 reps, they're gonna heads are gonna be turning
9.
People are gonna be. I feel like they underestimate him. I don't underestimate him. I think these scouts look at him.
Curl to 25 9 times.
So I'm with you. I think he really is going to be an intriguing story, and I really want to see what happens to him this draft season. Because, like I said, if he's a few inches taller, he'd be a lock to go top 10. His tape is outstanding, and he did it for a program that just he was really the sole weapon. He doesn't have anyone,
Right. He built their offense around him, and everybody knew it. And everybody knew it. It wasn't like there was some other thing you were. Now, young Mr. Bell came on this year. But the first 2 years he was when he was healthy, he was the focus of the offense.
He was. He dismantled Ohio State on his own.
Yes.
On his own. He dismantled Ohio State. So yeah.
Everything I needed to know was pretty much, and I loved him long before that. That brings us now to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that is built to win now, obviously, but they still could use an infusion of young talent. They have a lot of talent, but they still have some needs. Their best pass rushers are guys who are on the back 9 of their careers. I'm not blown away by some of the players in the back half of their defense. I love Antoine Winfield Jr., but the guys not named Antoine and Carlton Davis, who are both good and young. The guys not named Antoine Winfield Jr. or Carlton Davis, I'm not that impressed with. And they have 2 amazing linebackers, and the guys who play behind them, and luckily they play almost all the snaps, but everyone who's not Devin White and not Lamonte David is not super impressive when they've seen them have to play. And then they don't get a lot of great, consistent interior pressure, and you can run up their interior as well if you have a good offensive line.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And not only is it that they don't have a great amount of interior pressure, they also have some expiring contracts on the defensive interior. Awesome. So it is a need. It's not even a want at this point, right? It'd be nice to have an upgrade. It's a need. At the same time, I'm just curious of however the season ends for Tampa Bay, are they going to keep trying to, retool, try Brady? Is there? I guess that's probably what it's going to be. Is they're going to stay in win now mode?
My assumption is at least one more year they're going to try to hold this group together.
Yeah. And when I say it, not just Brady, but obviously Gronk and
all the old guys. Yes, all the old guys. Right. My assumption.
I want to just single one out.
But Bruce Arians. Yeah. I think Bruce Arians at least one more year. I think Tom at least one more year. Gronk 1 more year. All the old guys. JPP. I think they're going to try to hold everyone who is above 34, basically. I think they're going to try to get at least 1 more year out of those guys. And then after that, they're going to have to and start over again.
Yeah. And so I'm going to give them this would be a great spot if Russo was still there. I don't know if he makes this late. B, I'll give them Davion Nixon from Iowa. I've seen some. Yeah. I had to fight YouTube to find this tape. You got to scheme and you got to really find it, but it's out there and it's good. He's twitchy. He's strong. I think his length is a little bit more impressive than he gets credit for. And obviously, I think he's been well coached.
He is a legit. He could legitimately play 5 technique if that's what you wanted him to do. I'm not sure if that's one.
Yeah,
but he could do it.
Yeah,
he's versatile. And he could play the two eye. He could play 4 eye. He could play the nose. I wouldn't.
I wouldn't put him there. But if that's where you stop, if you say he could do anything, but maybe not,
I don't recommend. I don't recommend.
Yeah.
But could he get a bench? Sure. It's like saying could you play Steph Curry at 2 guard? Yeah, he could play Steph Curry at 2 guard.
He could. Yeah.
I don't recommend it, but yes, he could. Could you play Davion Nixon at 0? Yeah, I wouldn't.
You could. You could. It just maybe to get through a game if you had an injury, sure.
If you had to 0 or 1, sure. I cock nose shake, baby. But 2 eye, 3, 4, go to it. that 4-eye, that 3 and that 2-eye, just go to it. Let him go.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I'm very much high on him. I'd love to see him go, and he'd be in a great situation for him. And I think he would contribute right out of the box. We're pounding down the home stretch, people. That brings us to a pick that's actually a Jets pick, but coming from Seattle. And the Jets are not easy, but I mean, in that, once again, you can pick almost anything. They could use it. So what do you want to send to the Jets, who could use everything?
What do I want to send to the Jets? Well, I think it's another situation, too, where I think, A, they invested in a quarterback early, and B, they have to support the guy. So with more off the board, I gotta give them another receiver here. I think they could really use some help there. And I don't know. I want to give them. Let me just see who I got left here.
I'm probably gonna say Marshall is still available. There's a lot of good wide receivers, actually. This is a really good receiver draft. A lot of people are going to get good wide receivers in the second and third. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I'm gonna probably give them St. Brown here.
Okay.
I think he's a good route runner. He's fundamentally sound. I think they need a guy who I like him more as like the S possession receiver than the like X go get it. We're gonna live and die with you guy. But they need someone that's gonna be there and it's gonna get open reliably more than the guys they have. I like his floor as much as some of the guys in this draft, and I think he's just one of those dudes who's gonna really help them out because he's been productive. He's got the tools. He's a good route runner, and I think what he does, even like as a run blocker, he's physical. He wants it. He does a good job. So I think he's a sneaky good guy, and I think if it's time, he might surprise people.
I was going to guess. How do you think? That was the only thing I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
That's my big question: is how do you think he'll test?
I think he's going to test decently well. I think the slowest I see him is like a 4.52. Okay. What I'm saying is, and I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, I would not mock him there. So, I mean, it'd probably be a second-round situation. And someone maybe just gets a really good player in the second round. Yep. But I think based on what he's done on tape, the way he's able to just kind of get behind defenses, his get off, his change of direction, at the very least, I think his 3-cone and his shows be pretty solid. And I think it's really going to come down to top end. And he's just beat people like a drum, on several occasions this year. It's like, I really hope he's not getting open that easily running 4.56.
Well, I mean, Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams ran 4.56. Yeah. I think people don't understand that 4.56 is faster than you think, right? I've covered guys who ran 4.56, and I got blazed. I mean, no doubt. One is, how does a guy use his 4.56? I mean, AB ran 4.59 or something, or 4.57 or whatever. I mean, 4.5 something is faster than people really realize. If the average person were to see what a guy who runs in the mid to high 4.5s looks like in person, you would have a different appreciation for what that means. And it's, once again, it's how you use it, right? Because some guys 4.56 is faster than other guys 4.56, right? How do you use it? How quickly do you get to it also? And when do you use that acceleration?
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm right there. I'm curious what they do there. You could also go offensive line there. That might be probably another value move for them. So we'll see. We'll see what they do.
And we're now down to teams that are considered to be Super Bowl contenders. So theoretically, these teams should not have a lot of needs, but some of them still do. So this brings us now to Pittsburgh, a team that at one time, looked like the best. Sort of looked like the best team in football, but we could always tell they were kind of. My father used to use the term "running between the raindrops." If you run between the raindrops long enough, eventually you get wet, and now they're getting wet. But what do you see being, players that could land there for them at pick 29?
29, I think.
28. Pick 28.
Oh, 28. I think we kind of talked about it earlier, but I think Villanueva and Banner are both going to be free agents. So
yes,
I'm wondering if they need tackle. I think maybe they do. Right?
I say yes.
So I would say this is the ceiling pick pre-combine for Eichenberg. I think Liam Eichenberg. This is the highest I see him going right now until we check some boxes. And I think he can do really well as a Steeler. He kind of fits the mold. He's nasty. He's a great road grader versus a run. He's strong at the point. I think there are some footwork things, some agility things that maybe come into question. But Zach Banner is like a colossal offensive tackle. So if they made it work with this guy, and I think he had a little bit to learn too as a pro. So I think
both those guys are basically NFL power forwards, 6'8" and 6'9". They're the two tallest tackles in the league. The two tallest tackles in football play on the same team. Yeah,
exactly.
So they have a type.
They certainly do. Yeah.
Other players I could see being fits there: cornerback J.C. Horn, Christian Barmore, the 5 technique sort of poor man's not Christian Hayward, but what's his name?
Albert Hainsworth? Is that what
No, not Hainsworth. We have him already. Ironhead's son, but he's getting old. Not Christian. Cam. Thank you, Cameron. He's sort of like a poor man's Cam Hayward. Like, it's purely like Cam Hayward. This guy's not quite as good as Cam Hayward, unfortunately, but there's not another Cam Hayward available at the moment. So we may have to take a poor man's Cam Hayward. But yes, I could definitely see going with any of the picks we just mentioned. Now that brings us to the New Orleans Saints. And that is pick 29. The Saints are another team that's good, obviously, but occasionally some of their things get exposed, just like even some of the other good teams we talked about. Their defense, when they're getting pressure, is one of the better defenses. But when they don't get pressure, they look ordinary, as we've seen a couple of times. And their offense is very certain player-centric. I guess is the best way I can think to put it. There is a decent size drop-off in between some of the players that they have and the guys who are backing them up. So quality depth might be it. Well, tell me, who do you see there?
That's another edge rusher.
And they have a 41-year-old quarterback, I think, also. So that's the other thing to throw in there. But yeah, go ahead.
I think they'll wait on that. I think they'll probably wait before they address quarterback. They're going to have to really, I think, work that one out. I think, let me see. They could use defensive line. I think really defensive line for DB is probably where they go. Right now, I think best value is at DB. This low for what they need, I wouldn't be surprised if Javon Holland were here from Oregon or Harris Ford from Pittsburgh. They could use, I think, some safety help. And I think it feels like a Saints move, which is technically a sneaky good move if they get the right guy, to kind of go for a safety here, to dip into the safety pool with this pick. If they went D-line, there's guys, I just don't know, especially after they, I don't know where they're at with Davenport, but it doesn't seem like it's going the way it should.
No.
So it really, I can't pull the trigger on, defensive end right now for them because I don't really know how they feel about that whole situation. What would you do here with New Orleans? They're really hard.
Well, so thinking of sort of playmaking defenders and, guys that could end up being thought of as quote unquote steals later on. It's funny you said sneaky good. If indeed they decided to pull the trigger on a safety, and they did they wanted to get a guy who might end up, changing their defense a little bit, like becoming a bell cow. Well, people don't use the term bell cow safety, I guess, but a safety that ends up greatly outperforming where he's selected, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I could see a guy like Talanoa Hufanga from SC as a possibility. You mentioned Devon Holland. I think Trevon Moring from TCU is not out of the question if they went in that direction, and maybe even Andre Sisco if they decided to go with playmakers at safety. Could they go tight end? No, I don't know if there's another first-round tight end, so probably not.
Not this year. There's a couple good ones. I wouldn't put another in the first round.
There'll probably be a run on tight ends at the end of the second going into the third or something like that.
I could see that.
Okay, so that brings us now to pick Number 30, the resurgent Buffalo Bills. And no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. What do you see there?
I think a sneaky need for them may be offensive line as well, just because they've had to rotate a few different starting lineups here. And I think what they don't want to do is end up in a situation where the line is suddenly not good. And I think a lot of Josh Allen's progress is due to some of the time they give him and some of the things they're able to do on the ground. So I think they've got to find a way to shore that up. But I'm going to kick this one to you again. I'm going to pass the ball to you. Let me know. I mean, I feel like the move is a line. It feels like a line, but maybe I'm missing something. Tell me what you do.
I don't think you're missing something. So here's players I could see there. I mentioned Christian Barmore earlier. If for some reason he's still on the board, though he's not a desperate need for them, I could see him landing there. Other players I could see sliding in there. Who else can I see sliding in there? Give me a moment. I don't think your boy Boogie, if he's still on the board, is beyond the realm of possibility, actually. I could see Mr. Basham finding a home there if he's still on the board at that point. Other players that could possibly land there. But, I could see them making a move for... Let me see. Who else could I see them making a move for? I don't think running back is a likely pick, but I won't rule it 100% out. I think there's going to be at least one running back taken somewhere in the latter part of the first.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. Once again, I'm not saying that they are. I think that they're not completely sold on either Singletary or Zach Moss. I'm going to just flat out and say it.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah.
I think that they like those guys, and I think that those guys would still be on the team, but I think that they are of the mind that if they could get Najee Harris or Travis Etienne, that it would raise the level of the room. I mean, they would have a very different kind of running back room at that point because they've got guys right now that are like, if everything goes right, they're going to get you 4 yards, 0.2 if everything goes well. Now they go from a guy who can get you another couple of yards per touch. And that turns 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2. You don't get to 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2. You got the first down on second down. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that adds up over time. That's not having to do. Your quarterback doesn't have to be quite as heroic if you don't have to go to so many third downs, and that way he doesn't take as many hits, and that way your quarterback plays longer, stays healthier. It helps everybody. So I think, I believe it or not, I would not be shocked if they were a team that decided to go running back right at the tail end of the first. And let me see, one other possibility. If they went safety, Paris Ford. I can't remember if we said him already. I think that's an outside possibility. If our boy Davion Nixon's still around, if Wyatt Davis didn't get pushed up the board, I think he's a possibility. Obviously, we sort of tried to find him home a little earlier. If somebody didn't reach for Nick Bolton earlier and he's still there. And last but not least, I'll mention Tyson Campbell. Are all players I think are possibilities there.
Yeah.
And that moves us on to pick number 31. The last two teams and teams that preseason I picked to be in the Super Bowl. So the Green Bay Packers and the Chiefs. So talk about the Packers or players that you could see the Packers liking. We've seen that they've had to deal with some late season injuries that, showed once again, like so many other teams. Yeah. Even the best teams. Once again, this isn't college anymore. You don't have 85 guys on scholarship. Even the best teams are a couple of injuries at certain positions from looking very different. Yeah,
and that's just what I'm about to say. With Bakhtiari going down, you really wonder if that changes the tone of what they might want to do here. Because, he's been in the league a while. You just kind of wonder.
Is this the beginning of the unraveling of the sweater?
Yeah, and it's a shame because Aaron Rodgers is having such a great year, and if and they already kind of needed interior offensive line help anyway.
Already,
yeah.
They love Lindsey. They love Lindsey, but their guards are I mean, Elton, what's his name? They move him around. He plays everything. He's played center, I think, in a game or two. He's played some guard. I think he played right tackle. Is it Elton Simmons? Is that his name?
I don't know. I do not know his name.
The kid from Mississippi State. Well, whatever. He's been like sort of low key there, sort of almost say MVP on the offensive line, but he's helped them a lot because every time someone goes down, he goes plays that position and does fairly well. But which you need that guy. That guy's important. But what do you think they should address, and who would be a good player to go in that spot?
Well, I think Green Bay may. I mean, we'll see. But I think it's got to be offensive line somewhere. I feel like I think that's the move right now. I would say, assuming Combine goes well for him, he does good in the post-draft process. I think Walker and Little, could sneak into the first round.
There we go.
He really should be a firm first rounder based on the tape I've seen from him pre-injury. I mean, he was an outstanding tackle. I mean, this guy he already has length. That obviously couldn't go away. He had the length, the girth, the strength. The footwork was good. He was strong. He was twitchy. Movement skills. If he just stayed healthy, finished one more season, that guy would be locked for a top 10. Now he's got to scrape and claw his way back because, he was hurt all one season, then opted out of 20. So I think, people were kind of, left him by the wayside there. But with a good combine, for the tape I've seen, he's right back in it with me. And like I said, I think if he does as good in the combine and people see this tape that I've seen, it'll probably be higher than 31 that he'll be selected. But this feels like a good Green Bay Packer move where it's like this guy's a little bit off the radar, but he's killing it quietly somewhere. And I'm going to draft this guy. And that's kind of what the Packers do. That's Packers.
Kind of their thing. I'll throw out two other possibilities if either he's not there or something. Ben Cleveland, I think, isn't beyond the realm of possibility as a possible pick. And Jackson Carman. Now, he's a little bit of a project, but he's going to be something someday.
Did he declare now? Do you know if he declared? I could have missed it.
So, but I should double check. I'm going off guys that I think are going to declare. I should probably double check. This is so funny.
Well, most of these guys, especially if we're projecting in the first round, most of these guys have declared or definitely plan to. I mean, I don't think we've gotten too many underclassmen in the mix.
We might get one or two guys that end up pulling their names, or I say pulling them, not putting their names in. But here, because of the weirdness of this year, even the seniors, like even Brady White, who is going after his PhD, did declare. He had to actually declare, despite the fact that if he come back, he would have been a 7th year super duper senior. But because of the extra year of available eligibility, everyone now has to declare, which is going to be interesting. And now that brings us, last but not least, to the team that can pick whatever they want, the Kansas City Chiefs. But they aren't a perfect team. I mean, there are some things that I think they could use, but they don't have any. Obviously, they don't have any gaping, huge holes. But what would you do? What would be the things you think that should be addressed by the once and perhaps future champion Chiefs?
Well, I think last year, after winning the Super Bowl, it seemed like they were. I'm just going to say it. They may have squandered that first round pick when they selected Edwards-Helaire out of LSU.
No, you can just say yes.
It just needs to be said.
And I like him, but he probably should have gone at the top of the 3rd. But he's a good player.
Yeah, he's a good player. I just think, diminishing returns, right? I think if you look at some of the guys that they have on the bench behind him or a lot of teams, I mean, he's not that much better than a lot of those guys. So I think in order for them to keep this train moving, they have to get more value with this pick. So I don't really see a ton of value at interior on offensive line, but I do see some at receiver. I see maybe they have a shot at getting edge rush.
Do it.
Yeah.
So nuclear.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I think they've got to be a little bit more aggressive here. I mean, we sure didn't give them much left on the board to go after them.
Here's what I will say. First of all, just like we all know, there's going to be somebody we don't see in the first, probably two somebodies that we don't see in the first are going to go in the first. Guys that we thought should go in the middle of the 2nd or even the early 3rd will go somehow, some way. This year's LJ Collier or whatever. So some guy it happens every year. So somebody that we just could not possibly see in the first. 2 or 3 guys will be in the first. So somehow, some way, some guy that we thought would be gone by pick 20 is going to be available at pick 32. It happens every year.
And I agree. And I feel like they're in a position where maybe they can swing and get upside. I mean, edge rusher, receiver. Whoever you think has the brightest career there, I think that's got to be where they go. So I think in the mix, maybe Joseph Asai is in the mix, maybe Carl Passion is in the mix. Yeah. Okay. And then I think at receiver, a guy's in the mix there. It could be, it's tough, but I think I don't really know who I put in the mix right here. But just like you said, it could be guys going in a second. I mean, I don't know, man, because I don't want them to reach too much. But maybe Marshall is an option there for them.
Yeah,
maybe,
right. Terrence Marshall is a guy that could that could creep into the very end of the first
round.
Jalen Phillips, if he declares, I have a feeling he might declare. So if he declares, I think he might, scratch and claw his way into the very end of the first. Yeah. I mentioned Elijah Vera Tucker. I think he has a shot at the very end of the first. Darian Kendrick, even, right? Though he didn't have the best day at the office last night, he's a guy that could find his way into the very tail end of the first. And I'll mention one other guy, a Bloodlines guy, who might get pushed up the board a little, is Asante Samuel II. If he declares, I won't be surprised at all if he does.
I like this tape a lot, Bill, and I think he doesn't get enough run. When I did a mock like a month ago, and I said this guy's going here, and everyone's like, "Who?" I'm like, "Yeah, this guy's good." And we're mocking all these other names.
If he declares, I think somewhere between 25 and 32, he goes off the board.
I think that's a sweet spot for him, and I think what you get there at 25 to 32 with him is better than some teams are going to get in the top 15 if you choose to take a corner.
Correct.
So, I think that's going to be really, really interesting to watch.
And last but not least, I could see them, if somebody decided to reach a little bit on the quote unquote second tight end, if they decided to reach a little bit and get a guy like Pat Fryermuth or whatever, it wouldn't upset me greatly because of the team they are. You know what I mean? Like if it were another team, I'd be like, what are you doing? But for them, it's like, oh, I can kind of sort of understand what you're doing there.
That's the last thing. And I was just gonna say part of the reason why I brought up the Edwards-Helaire pick last year is because it'd be very convenient to give them like Najee Harris this year, who I think is a little bit more dynamic, has a little bit more upside.
You can do all the things, but does it bigger, faster, and stronger.
That's it. So if you're gonna, that's your first round running back. That with Patrick Mahomes is like, whoa, right? Yes, exactly. So I think
I love short, squat guys. I mean, that's me. Like I love those guys, but I would not draft me in the first because I know. Right?
We're guys that over deliver, Bill. Take us. We do. We over deliver. People are always shocked by actually how. I was not a first guy off the bus. I was the last guy off the bus, but I was better than you think I'd be. So last but not least, before we wrap things up, one is I wanted to ask is if these guys might not be first rounders, even second rounders, but do you have any sort of favorites of yours that might go later that are, what the ever popular sleepers, hidden gems, whatever term you like to use. You might mention one or two of those guys, and then I'll give you a chance to promo, I don't know, your SoundCloud or whatever. My SoundCloud. No, I'm not a SoundCloud musician, man. I don't know. I think the game has escaped me a little bit. But no, in terms of guys, first off, I don't think there's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of talk about quarterback, not a lot of talk about certain quarterbacks, and I'm going to get into it because and I've gotten to debates recently. A lot of it is, if you take a quarterback after first round, it's a waste. Yes, but no, right? Because every class is different. So in theory, no useful quarterback should, useful as a starter quarterback should make it out the first. But this is one of those classes where, because of popularity and because of just rampant needs at other positions, there could be a situation where a guy's in the second round.
First starter quarterbacks we have right now.
Oh yeah, I'm fully 100% with you. I'm just saying that this is one of those years where there's going to be more value at quarterback than people anticipate. I don't believe Desmond Ridder has enough arm, but if he somehow does, I'll be looking out. But if he somehow does, that might be a guy. My guys that I would die on is I like Kellen Bond. Okay, but I got to be honest about it.
In terms of arm strength, what's the difference between Mac Jones, Desmond Ridder, and Kyle Trask? What's the difference?
Zero. The difference is zero. But to me, that means none of them are first-round quarterbacks. None of them should be starters. Right. But no one will listen to that, though. But that's what I'm saying, though. If you're really going to play the I don't care about arm strength game, then you better have Desmond Ridder probably in the first round, right? So that's up to you. But if you are playing the arm strength game, you got to be a little bit more cautious. Guys outside the top four quarterbacks, Kellen Mond, Jamie Newman. I don't know how these guys haven't been talked about. I mean, I get it with Jamie. Totally opted out, which I get. Yeah. But if he just had a play, you know, he would have elevated himself to it probably unlocked for top 50, top 30. Just on the fact of what they were able to accomplish.
Criticize his kids for whatever decision they make. That's not me. But I keep thinking that if he had, I mean, what if he was at Mississippi State? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
And like I said, you know, me and Jamie are tight. I respect his decision. I'm not trying to say like, oh, he should have played, but I think that's why people haven't given him the love he deserves. Is because it's like a now kind of fan base you're dealing with in football.
Yes.
And it's what have you done for me lately? And it's like, well, he carried, you know, a very injured way forward. If not for
recency bias, what kind of biases would we have, right? I mean,
exactly. So I think he's a guy that really needs to get his roses from some of these fans and from these scouts because he's got a good enough arm to play in the NFL. Accuracy, I think with him, the only question is going to be about, you know, complexity of offense at the NFL and how he transitions. I think it can be good.
To me, he's a lot like what Brett Hundley was, but with the added advantage, I think he is a more mature person.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
I think that matters. That matters a little bit, at least, right?
Yeah.
People underestimate how much personal maturity is, particularly at the quarterback position. There's a reason that there's been no real successes, unless you want to count guys that served in World War II, like Norman Van Brocklin. But in terms of sophomore quarterbacks, guys who are sophomore quarterbacks who are entering the draft, the only guy who's been a super successful is Van Brocklin. He's a Hall of Famer. We've seen, you know, Tommy Maddox. We've seen Montel. Vic is sort of the next closest to a success. And part of it is personal. Part of it is how little you've matured as a human being to that point in your life. And, you know, when we look at what's now happened with in Washington, and I still think he's reclaimable. I'm not ready to close the book on Dwayne Haskins, but it's completely attributable to the fact that he hadn't lived that much life in addition to the whole football stuff. You know, this person's leaving home at 20, 20 and a half or whatever age he was, and going off to where grown men with bills and problems await in that locker room, and he wasn't ready.
Yeah, he wasn't. And well, part of it is he wasn't ready, but there's, you know, stuff there. I don't know why he lost the starting job earlier, but, you know, showing up to the strip club after a loss with no mask, though. You know, it might have been okay if you had the mask on.
Right.
No mask at that point, you're reckless.
No, that's beyond the pale.
You know, yeah, but I just think there is a little bit of maturity there. But part of it is, he is 20, so he's not really going to be super mature unless you really found a good 20-year-old guy. But that's part of the reason why that happened. But getting back to what I was mentioning earlier about quarterbacks, I really like Kellen Mond too, and there just isn't enough talk about him. I will challenge anyone. Tell me what Mac Jones can do that he can't. Tell me physically, what is he capable of that he can't do? And plus, with Mond, you even get more mobility too. He's faster. He's more athletic.
He's bigger, he's stronger. He has a better arm. It's not a great arm, but it's a better arm. And I think that part of why Kellen Mond's arm doesn't look as impressive as it is his mechanics need. He has inefficient mechanics. And I'm not one of those biomechanical guys. I'm not an expert, but I can tell when a guy is leaving a certain amount of RPMs or whatever you put it. He's leaving some stuff on the table because he's not, the old saying about screwing your cleats into the ground. He's, like when a boxer is throwing his right hook, like he's throwing his jab, like he's still up on the balls of his feet, how even if he has power, he's not going to hurt anybody. It's that same deal. He doesn't settle down on, and so a lot of his balls that end up not having enough zip on them or floating is because he's not, come on, man, sit down on it. Like, you got to sink in a little bit and drive. And so I think he has a stronger arm than we think because his mechanics are robbing him of some zip.
It's definitely possible. I think his footwork's good. There is some things up top with his release that could be a little bit better and cleaner. But one thing about him, I mean, for the faults there, the ball's getting out on time and it's going to be accurate. You know, he has not missed much in the tape that I've seen. So if you look at those things and you say, man, we couldn't get a quarterback in the first round, but we really need one. We need a guy with starter potential and a guy that could be a good starter in the NFL. I mean, Kellen Mond is definitely your guy.
Well, if we're playing this game, I'll throw out a couple more names. Dustin Crum and Drew Plitt. There's a couple of guys in the MAC that, and once again, they might not be future starters, but they might. I mean, they're guys that are sort of on that sort of high-end backup starter bubble, I think, in what they could be. But that's what I said about Kirk Cousins coming out too. I called him a guy who got a high-end backup starter bubble, and I think I comped him to Jake Delhomme coming out. I think that's why I comped Cousins.
Yeah, stronger arm Jake Delhomme.
Stronger arm.
Decent guy. That's a decent guy right there. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'll just throw out a couple guys that I really like. And, of course, there's going to be a lot of running backs that are going to go late or perhaps not even go at all. But one of my pet peeves is when a guy that has a historic season, a season for the ages, isn't even a finalist for the award in his category, right? So Jarrett Patterson, who was chasing Barry Sanders records, right, ends up not even being a finalist. He was a semifinalist, but not even being a finalist for the Doak Walker. Look, kids, I get it. I love Breece Hall. I love Najee. I love all the guys that are finalists are all great players. But not a single one of them had a better season than Jarrett Patterson. Jarrett Patterson was an offense where it was a run, throw on play action offense. And Kyle Van Treese next year will be a quarterback we should be talking about. His quarterback's not bad, but he had the advantage of all that play action, set up by the fact that they have a great run-to punch with Kyle Marks, who's from my neck of the woods, 7'5", Norfolk, stand up.
Virginia Beach,
But yeah, Marks, their backup, Kevin Marks, their backup, is a terrific player too. But Jarrett Patterson had a year for the ages, and for him to not at least be a finalist, and I think he's going to be the dreaded committee back, but he's going to be a good part of the dreaded committee back.
That's really the job, unless you are just outstanding. That's the job now. And if it isn't initially, it becomes the job, so it's, you're right.
And I'm going to throw out a receiver who really isn't a sleeper, I guess, at this point, is Tyrese Fryfogle. And he's not a freak athlete, but he's a really good athlete. He has really good body control. And, I mean, who's better at high pointing a ball than Tyrese Fryfogle? I mean, he's not one of the usual suspects. He's not at LSU or Alabama or whatever, but watch his tape and tell me you've seen somebody better at high pointing a football anywhere in college football this year than Tyrese Fryfogle. And I think he's going to test better than people expect. I think he's going to be in that, once again, that mid to low 4.5s range, and he's going to jump. I think he's going to be in that 36, 37 vertical range, and he's going to have good agilities. They have some receivers at Indiana. I don't know why people just are talking about them more, but they've got some guys who can catch the ball in Indiana, but the best of them is Tyrese Fryfogle. And then on defense, my man crush or whatever at corner is Shamar Jean Charles at App State. And App State's become like a low-key like DBU. I mean, they've put some defensive backs in the NFL, and they're going to put some more. Sean Jolly is the one that got all the love coming into the season. Maybe it's because he was a higher-ranked recruit coming out of high school. I don't know. But I watch a lot of App State football, and to me, the guy who's got better technique, who's given up fewer big plays, and I trust more is Shamar Jean Charles. And then this guy that probably won't even come out. So I guess I'm sort of semi-wasting time mentioning him. But Cade Hall has been a disruptor for San Jose State. And he doesn't have the body you want. He's a slightly longer version of Bruce Miller, who unfortunately got moved to fullback in the NFL. But if you can somehow get past the fact he doesn't quote unquote look the part, he is explosive in small areas. He has good technique. He plays hard as heck. I just hope somebody doesn't try to turn him into a H-back or something. But he's a really good shorter defensive end, which is sometimes the kiss of death, I guess. But he's a really good football player. And maybe anyone else I should. Oh, I'll throw out one other, Justin Rice, and he's actually looks like he's going to stay for a 6th year. So sort of but he might change his mind. We'll see. But he's a guy that was a grad transfer already once, and now he's going to be, I guess, a double grad transfer. But Arkansas State, Fresno, and Arkansas State's own Justin Rice, and he could become a Blake Martinez type at the next level. He's one of those guys where he's going to test okay, but he's incredibly instinctive, smart, tough, and he's going to someday lead somebody's team in tackles.
Yeah, 100%. And I got into a little bit of his tape. I should probably watch a little bit more. But I think that's an important note, too, is that, you listed a really strong list of guys here. And so, I think this is definitely some tape I got to go back on and check out for sure.
It's what I do. It's my thing. So if you want to see all of the guys, and I'm about to publish my hashtag all underappreciated team, but you can see sort of the watch list as I've developed it over the year by clicking on Twitter, hashtag all underappreciated team. And you'll see, and you can see it from past years too, if you're that kind of sicko. But so this is the chance for you to, I guess not promote your SoundCloud, but promote whatever you want to promote. What are you up to? What are you doing?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Montel NFL. I got the old account back up and going. It's weird. It's like your followers go like deleted after a while if you so I have to build it again brick by brick. So that's unfortunate, but it's happening and it's going okay. As far as some work I'm doing now, I'm doing NFL draft stuff for Bears Report, which is on 247, owned by CBS. So doing some work on that platform. Some other things I'm doing, it's really just that, just writing guys. I didn't really get to watching tape until like maybe late October, so I'm like well behind the curve here. Right. There's still some guys I got to see, and you got into a few names here that I got to get familiar with probably as soon as we get off this call. So just every day, just trying to take hacks at it and getting back to it, and it's going to be good. And the good news, I still have a lot of like combine data stuff that I held on to. So like when that gets up and running, hopefully I'll get some more followers because I'll be able to show off some unique stuff. So,
you will. We're going to get you back.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, at some point between now and the actual draft, we'll come back and do something else. Plus post combine.
No doubt. Yeah.
Shuffle the deck and, things look different. Yeah. And then at some point, probably the weekend prior to the actual draft, I'll do my
mock draft palooza.
Yeah, the big mock draft palooza. So you are always invited. 16 DMs. We separate the men from the boys because you do 7 rounds, baby. Not 2 rounds, not 3 rounds. We're doing 7 rounds. So we find out who's really real when we do that.
Now, have you ever thought about breaking it up a little bit at a time, or is it usually like
maybe.
2 days?
I'll probably do it over 2 days. I'll probably do it over 2 days. Yeah,
2 days. Okay.
Yeah, because that way people don't die on you. But yes. Yeah. You know what? I'll do a little Twitter poll. So people who say they're interested, I'll send out a Twitter poll and we'll say, do you want to do 2 days? Do you want to do 3 days? And I'll either do it over the whole weekend, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or we'll do Saturday, Sunday, or whatever, depending on what people say. I will let the people decide.
Yeah, I like it. And let me know. And I'm curious to see who's next. Hopefully I can get a hold of others.
You will be invited.
Awesome. Kind of keep the Bears, like when you send out the list of teams, just keep the Bears invisible. Like make it seem like
what I will do is if you are declaring now that you're in, I will allow you to pre-pick. Sorry, you lost your chance, whoever else wanted the Bears. If that's
gotcha.
I've had people who've picked for the Bears in the past include Jim Sarantias. Shout out to Jim Sarantias, also known as hold on, I'll tell you. Fantasy, hold on. Not Fantasy Doctor, Fantasy. Oh, the Fantasy Greek. Thank you. Jim Sarantias, aka the Fantasy Greek. Who else has picked for the Bears in the past? I've had a few, but if you want to do it, I will. If I'm not going to sign anything in blood today, but if you're committed to it, I will. I will hold it open for you, and then I will confirm with you closer.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see how it's stretched out over the next days, but you also do it to where, right, if I start and give you my board, worst case
scenario. If you give me my board, I can still make the picks. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I can confirm.
I have to be there for every pick. You don't have to be there for every pick.
Okay, so yeah, I want to be there, though. I want to. So I want to see how this is breaking up, but I can confirm today I'll do it. if you'll give me the Bears, and at the worst case, like I said, you have my board.
Okay,
I can promise.
Now start thinking of one AFC team. So it's 16 GMs, one AFC team, one AFC team. So think about who you want for the AFC side. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll give it some thought.
Well, once again, it has always been a pleasure. We will be doing this again at some point in the future. I'm going to give you your life back, as you know I should, and I have enjoyed our 7 years. Wait. I met you when you had just started undergrad, right?
No, you met me as actually I was finishing undergrad, so I'm one of I'm an older dog of the Bill Carroll proteges here.
Okay, so you're not right. You're not one of the younger goats. Okay, so you're probably so probably more
I would say
4 or 5 years then, right?
Well, dang, I'm trying to think about it. No, actually, you know what? I left undergrad in 2013, and I think for the 14 draft was when we met, kind of in that area. So.
Yeah, so
in a few months we'll be right at 7. Yeah, about 6, 7 years.
Right, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, I'm not. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, it's incredible, right? It's been a heck of a ride.
It's been an interesting ride. I wish you all the best. We will get your follower count back up, and at some point, you and I will even start co-creating some stuff to put out there because I like working with you. So
I like working with you, and I was just thinking about that. It's kind of hit me, so I got to give you your roses for this, man, because you taught me a lot over the years. I'm not gonna let you finish this podcast without totally giving you credit, my man. See this? I'm wearing this because I met you, dog. Okay, like I would not. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I started meeting you, we started doing weekly podcasts, I started evaluating regularly and getting more prospects down. The next year, I started working in football. The literal next year, I left my job, dude. I said, I'm going back to grad school. I got an internship. Internship went well. I started working in Wake Forest, did that for a few years. And I only opted out because I wanted to have a family. That's really, I wanted to have a family.
That's the whole thing is those first few years, those early football jobs, you can't really man. I mean, it's so selfish. I mean, I don't want to criticize the guys that do it because it's you want to do both, but you can't do both well. I guess
no, you're 100%. Yeah. So I just exactly, and it's different. It weighs on everyone differently. It looks different on everybody. So, but I just wanted to thank you, man, because this has been a great outlet. And so, just thank you for your time and attention because you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this too, man. I have not said it publicly, but I would call you the Satchel Paige of Draft Fit Twitter because you have been killing it. You've been killing it for years. You have been killing it for years, dog. And I still don't think you get enough credit. So I gotta say that.
Okay. Well, enough about me. Before we close this out, I used to call you the second hardest working, at least, young man in sports media. What I will say is you have been a hustler from jump. Like, there's lots of young dudes I've spent time with, and you and another young man that you already know I'm thinking of probably have done the most with the opportunities, right? And other guys could have gotten it too, right? They could be where you are, but they didn't want it.
There's just sacrifices you got to make. Yeah, there's just sacrifices you got to make. Yeah. Right. Now, if I was an engineer and I graduated making a certain salary, this would not be achievable for me. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right. We all said at some point, I'm willing to have a slightly less nice lifestyle in order to chase this particular part of this dream. And so you should be congratulated, 1, for seeing an opportunity and pursuing it, 2, for being willing to pay a price that some people won't pay, and 3, you are smarter than most people, period. Not just in what we do. You're smarter than people, period. I mean, that should be noted that you are a very bright young man, and I see great things in your future, whatever you decide to do. Like I said, I enjoy you. I enjoy us as a collective. So I'm going to let you, like I said, have your life back. This is it for this, but not it for us. You'll see more of us, people. So thank you once again. Have a great 2021, and we are out.